Hi, welcome in. My name is Ro. I'm a project manager, content creator, and healthy productivity fanatic. And for both of my jobs and for leisure, over the past few years, I have traveled a lot. I've been to 30 different places in 17 countries across 3 continents. I've traveled by boat, by plane, by train, by bike, you name it, I've done it. And over these past few years, I have picked up a bunch of useful tips and tricks and lessons learned that might be useful for you if you're traveling soon as well. This goes from my favorite things to pack, to practical tips and tricks, and just some things to keep in mind for when you're traveling, for instance, to another continent. And since 21 is my favorite number, I'd love to share my favorite 21 tips for traveling. Let's dive right into it. My first and almost favorite tip is using packing cubes. I have been recommending packing cubes to everyone I know almost religiously because these things have saved me so much hassle and so much time in both packing and unpacking when I'm traveling. They help you organize your suitcase, which basically means you can pack certain things together without your suitcase getting all messy. And when you're at your destination, you get to actually find your things because you put them together in packing cubes. They help keep everything in place, they make it easier to find items, and they also eventually save you storage because packing cubes allow you to pack really compact. And as a girly who loves to pack a lot of shit, that's really nice because I get to pack more stuff when I travel without having to buy a bigger suitcase. Tip number 2 is smaller electronic devices are better. And I know that sounds like an open door, but at the same time, I see so many people traveling with huge bulky cameras, huge bulky laptops, where if you travel a lot, make the investment into small and lightweight gear. Think about a smaller camera. Think about a tablet instead of a laptop, but use a little attachable keyboard. Maybe bring your e-reader instead of a couple of books. Just think of how light you can travel and which electronics are weighing that bag down at this moment, because it genuinely makes a difference for your travel comfort if you are not just dragging around a really heavy suitcase because you decided to bring 7 cameras that you didn't need. Also, it makes it a ton easier to get through security because I'm not sure about you, but I always stress so much when I'm in the line and they ask me to take all of my electronics out of my bag and I have to unpack my entire backpack because everything I took is electronic. Having lightweight devices that are easily slotted into your bag makes it so much easier to get through security in so many places. This is a kind of a nice bonus tip in between that I just thought of as I was saying this, but researching what your airport does in terms of security can help a lot in thinking of how to pack your hand luggage. If you already know beforehand that certain airport, like Schiphol, doesn't require you to take out all of your electronics, you can maybe pack a little bit more efficiently because you can stow things away. However, if you already know that airport requires you to take all of your electronics out of your bag, you might pack in a way that it's easy for you to quickly do that in security, so you save yourself a lot of stress and hassle. Then the next official tip is AirTags or Find My. If you have the Apple system at your disposal, then I can highly recommend getting yourself some AirTags, putting them in your suitcase, your hand luggage, and making sure that Find My is turned on all of your Apple devices like your phone, your tablet, your Apple Watch, your AirPods, whatever you use. The reason I'm saying this is because after traveling so much, I have also heard a lot of horror stories from fellow travelers of their luggage getting lost. And especially when I travel to different continents or I do a longer flight or I do a transfer within my flights, then I want to make sure that my luggage cannot get lost. Even if it accidentally stays behind, with an AirTag or with Find My, I can always locate my items. And airport staff, unfortunately, isn't the most helpful in helping you try to find it, so it helps a lot if you can already locate where your luggage is stored so they can go get it for you. It's also one of those great things that if your stuff gets stolen, one, you're able to locate where it went to, but also you're able to block your devices from a distance so the person who stole it cannot get to your sensitive data. Then the next tip is carrying a portable charger. And make sure that you don't get one of those cheap, flimsy ones that always run out when you need them, but invest in one that's slightly more expensive. They don't have to be ridiculously expensive. For 25 to 30 bucks, you have a 2000 watt one, which is actually perfect for charging your phone multiple times. But by making sure that you always have power on the go, you never run out of battery, which at least for me, especially if you do quite some solo travel, or if you're the person who is responsible for navigating, saving all the tickets, all of those important things. Basically, if you're the leader of the travel pack, make sure that you also always have some extra battery juice in your bag because not just you, but other people in your group might need it as well, and it would surprise you how many people forget this very basic travel item. The next tip comes to packing again. If you are using packing cubes, or even if you're not using packing cubes, rolling up your clothes saves a lot of space. It actually is way easier to roll up your clothes than to fold them and keep them neat in your suitcase. It makes it easier to find your things, and especially if you're using packing cubes, rolling up your clothes allows you to stuff even more into those packing cubes. It also keeps your clothes in better condition, so if you're bringing things things that easily get wrinkles in them, then rolling your clothes can actually prevent that. Specifically for pants, this is a really nice one. So if you're going on a little business trip, making sure that you roll your clothes will make sure that you look crisp and clean when you arrive at your destination. Then the next tip is kind of like a combination of little tips that all have to do with how to smartly pack your hand luggage. Things that I would always recommend to anyone putting in their hand luggage, whether that be a suitcase or a backpack, is make sure that you have a little first aid kit that holds things like plasters, disinfect spray, anything that you need to take care of yourself on the go. And also make sure that you pack a little first outfit. So make sure that you pack some underwear, some socks, your makeup, anything you would need if you had to survive a day or two without your main luggage. Because like I said earlier, it tends to happen that your luggage can get lost, and this is way more stressful if you don't pack for that occasion. However, if you make sure to pack all of those little things into your hand luggage, it's usually a tiny toiletry bag that just fits in there quite nicely. That allows you to brush your teeth, take off your makeup, make sure that you can change your clothes or take a shower. Those things help a ton in reducing the stress of potentially losing your luggage, because you know that you'll be covered for a day or two. Even in the worst case scenario and you never will find your main luggage again, you will have some things to kind of cover the first 2 days, allowing you time to replace all of the things that got lost in your main luggage. The next tip is actually about the things you do before you even travel, and that is booking your flights. I'm sure you might have heard this, but I feel like still a lot of people forget. But when you're going to book flights, make sure that your browser or whatever app you're using or whatever phone you're using is in incognito mode. That way your cookies don't track your browsing activity, because flight prices actually go up if you come back to a website later and you haven't bought anything. So making sure that you are in incognito mode actually saves you money on the long run. And then the next tip is perfect when you plan on exploring a lot in the destination you're going to, but also if you're trying to get from the airport to the location that you're staying and you might have never been to that place before. I know that not everyone has access to internet everywhere. This is something that I got confronted with when I traveled to the States for the first time. Obviously, my regular EU cellular data plan is not available in the US, and before I had Wi-Fi, I needed something to help me navigate. You can actually download your maps offline in most map apps. You can do this in Google Maps. I believe you can also do it in Apple Maps, and that way you can actually make sure that you have at least some guidance at your disposal when you're arriving at your destination and you don't have cellular data yet, so that you can get to your hotel and then potentially connect to Wi-Fi or buy yourself a cellular bundle. Another tip related to maps is making sure that you prepare by placing little pins on your map. I know that every map app basically offers this feature, but in Google Maps specifically, that's the one that I always use. You can save locations to lists. So whenever I travel somewhere and I know I'll be there for a while, I do like to do my preparation and kind of research the area I'm staying in, see if there's any nice bakeries, any nice places I can get some food, any places I'd like to go and see. And then I place little markers on the map, and that way every single time I am traveling, I already have all of my locations at hand. And if I really like something and someone later down the line asks what I went to, I can just pull up the address within mere seconds. This is also very useful if you have limited data and you want to make sure that you have your information about your hotel bookings at hand. This is specifically useful if you're staying in multiple locations across one travel, because that way you never have to use cellular data to look it up again, because you already have it saved in a little list of all the important addresses for that travel. The next tip is actually using a money belt or a hidden pouch, or like a small little bag that you can basically put across your body for your most important things, like your phone, your keys, your passport, your money, all of those things that you do not want to lose when you're traveling. Unfortunately, in a lot of places in the world, pickpocketing is a huge problem, but also just in general, losing your stuff happens to the best of us as well. And making sure that you have a little money pouch or belt that you can keep really close to your body, making it hard to pickpocket, but also making it very clearly for you that you need to keep that bag safe and that you shouldn't lose it. It also makes it really easy if you have a little pouch that is easily accessible when you're going through security at airports, so that you don't have to dig in your main hand luggage to find your passport or to find your boarding pass. But having that little pouch, I always take my little Uniqlo bag that I just put across my body. The fact that I always have everything, my phone, my boarding pass, my keys, everything accessible right over here is so incredibly useful, because I never feel like I'm holding up the line or I'm slow at airports, because I always have all my most important things right at the tips of my fingers. And then the next tip is to photograph your important documents. Obviously, if you do this, make sure that you store them in a place that is safe, because taking pictures of your passport and stuff like this does come at a certain risk, because you don't want that information to just be publicly online available for everyone. However, taking some pictures of your formal documentation, like your insurance card, your passport, maybe your boarding pass, maybe any additional things that you booked for that travel specifically, having pictures saved in a location that you can access online is incredibly useful, because if you were to lose your bag, or if you were to get pickpocketed and you lose your passport, having a picture of it, knowing your most basic information, your document reference, all of those things is going to save you a lot of time by trying to get that sorted out with the authorities abroad. So making sure that you have pictures of that and store them safely somewhere so you also don't have to worry about people getting access to that information who you maybe don't want having access to that information is going to help you a lot in reducing the stress of potentially losing your bag. Then the next tip is to carry a reusable water bottle. For the past couple of years, airports have actually been allowing empty water bottles to get carried into the airport in your hand luggage. There was a time and place where that wasn't even allowed, but lately it is completely fine to take an empty water bottle into the airport. And there's actually most airports have places where you can fill your water bottle, and that gives you a full bottle of water to take on the plane or on the boat or on the train, wherever you go. And it is always so incredibly nice to just know that you have some water and you don't have to wait for someone in the plane to come along, maybe for you to have to pay a lot of money for a not so great Coke because you're flying with an expensive airline who doesn't cover your drinks already. Then it's just really nice to know that you have a bottle of water in your bag, and just make sure that you bring an empty one because if it's full, you're gonna have to toss it out. Then the next tip is to actually wear your bulkiest items. I can fully understand that sometimes the weather doesn't always allow for this, but if you're gonna go to the airport, make sure that you wear your most heavy items, or that you are taking your more heavy items maybe in your hand luggage, because that way you can actually save a lot of space and a lot of weight in your main luggage, preventing you from having to upgrade or actually pay a fee because your luggage is too heavy. Then another tip, if you're scared about your luggage breaking or getting destroyed or getting damaged, is marking your luggage as fragile. You can actually even mark it as fragile if your luggage isn't fragile, just to make sure that they handle it with a bit more care. I'm not sure if you've ever seen those videos of people handling luggage at certain airports, but your suitcase is gonna get thrown around. So if you have anything in there that you want to make sure stays safe, make sure to mark it as fragile, because then it's mandatory for airport staff to handle them with care, and if they don't do it and still something breaks, then the airport is actually responsible because your luggage was marked as fragile. Then the next tip is for when you arrive at your destination, and that is to actually just use a local ATM to get the currency of the place you're staying at. I know there's a lot of those money exchange places, specifically at airports, but also at train stations or any other place you can travel to, but using those will actually put a hefty fee on the amount of money that you're trying to exchange, and it's also usually not necessary. In almost all countries, you can just use the local ATM. There might still be a fee, but it's much lower than the ones at those exchange centers. And you can just take the money from the ATM as much as you like, as you're used to at home. And I personally do not understand why people use exchange centers if there is just the option to go to a local ATM. It might be that people just don't know that you can do that. Hence, I'm putting it on this list as a tip. Then the next one is to bring a power strip converter. The amount of times I have traveled with people that have forgotten this, I cannot even begin to count how many times that happened. But make sure to check what power outlets or wall outlets there are in your country of destination, because most of the times it's going to be something different than actually what you own. You can just get one of those little adapters for as little as $30. And my preference is actually to get an adapter that always works on all, because that way I can always just bring that one thing and I never have to worry about bringing any of my other ones or have to figure out which one I have to bring beforehand. I can always just throw that one in my bag and I will know that I always have the right power plug in my bag. On top of this, actually make sure to bring a little additional power strip or something that can extend the amount of ports that you have, because that way you never have to worry about bringing multiple converters, but you can just use one converter to convert your power strip, and then you can actually use that to just charge your devices as normal. Then the next one that I have actually used quite a lot recently, and that is using Instagram for inspiration. And I don't necessarily mean trying to see where all the influencers are going, but very often there is quite some accounts that are called like Visit Barcelona or Visit Madeira or Visit Chicago. Those accounts often repost from local content creators. So that's people that are living in that space, sometimes even born and raised in that place that you're trying to visit. And those people will actually have the best insider tips. For instance, in Madeira, we got some great tips on places to go hiking. We got some really nice tips on where to book a little Jeep tour instead of the main one that all the tourists got recommended. We booked another one because we found it on Instagram, and it was one of the best experiences we've had on the island. There is so many great things that you can find on Instagram if you just put a little bit of effort in finding the accounts instead of all the tourists, but finding the accounts of the locals that are recommending things for tourists to do. Then next up, I can highly recommend, if you're gonna invest in some gear for traveling, is get yourself a pair of noise canceling headphones. The longest of times I flew with just regular headphones, and it was always a struggle because I could never really hear the music I was listening to could never really hear the podcast that I was trying to listen to. And then I got my first pair of noise canceling headphones, and my life has not been the same. Apart from the fact that these headphones will also serve a great purpose outside of traveling, this is genuinely worth the investment if you tend to do longer flights, longer boat trips, longer train rides, because the fact that you can drown out the engine noise and just listen to whatever you want to listen to, whether that be your show or whatever, is perfect. What is also really nice is that most of the times in planes you actually can connect your Bluetooth headphones these days, which means that you can just use your noise canceling headphones to watch movies in the plane, and it is so much more peaceful than using any other type of headphones, so I can highly recommend investing in a pair. Then kind of linked to having a good pair of headphones to listen to whatever you want to listen to is actually making sure that you save your music offline. If you're a person who already puts all of their music from their iTunes onto their phone, I don't think you will have this problem, but if you are a Spotify or YouTube or Apple Music user, make sure that you save your music offline in a playlist that's downloaded to your phone, so you can still listen to your favorite songs while you don't have any cellular connection and you're on airplane mode. And if you're doing that, make sure that you save a variety of playlists, because sometimes you think that you want to listen to something, but then you get on the plane and you realize you actually didn't want to listen to Spanish guitar music, but you want to listen to hard rock. Make sure that you save a couple of different genres for yourself. Kind of linked to a tip I gave earlier about researching the airport you're going to, but then not related to security, is make sure you understand how the airports work in terms of terminals. This is something that I never realized before I traveled outside of Europe, because within Europe, most airports are organized in the same way, and that means that you just go to the airport, and once you arrive, you check your gate, you check your terminal, and you check where you have to go for your flight. However, specifically when traveling to the States, I found out that most airlines have their own terminal, and you have to redirect your Uber driver or your taxi to the right terminal. So you have to look up in advance which terminal you have to go to, and it's not like you go to one singular place and from there go to different terminals. So make sure that you understand the airport you're traveling to, what their rules are, but also specifically for traveling in the US, make sure that you know which terminal you travel to, because they tend to be quite far apart as well. And then my last tip on this list, tip number 21, is to actually save your most important information offline. Make sure that you print your documents, make sure that you have things in your bag just in case your phone runs out, just in case you don't have access to internet. This has been something that I never did because I always fully relied on my phone until not too long ago. I was traveling to London and I woke up in the morning and my phone would not turn on. The amount of stress I got from that was wild, because everything was on my phone. My tickets, my flight information, my bookings, everything. I didn't write anything down in a place that I could access without, well, I could have used my laptop or my iPad. That was kind of my backup plan of taking my iPad and scanning all my boarding passes with my iPad. But just make sure that you have that information stored offline somewhere, and also that you share it with people that are close to you. Make sure that you share your flight information or the place you're staying with your significant other, your parents, with your brother and your sister, whoever you are close with, whether that be your best friend, I don't care. Make sure that other people know where you are at what point in time, because specifically when you're traveling alone, even more specifically when you're traveling alone as a woman, make sure that people know where you are at what times. That might sound like it's overly protective of yourself, but I can promise you, you want that. It's gonna give you a lot of peace of mind when you're traveling, and you just know that other people also know your itinerary, and that people will check in when you land from a flight. They will ask, how was your flight? Did you land safely? It just gives you that feeling of maybe not traveling so alone. I think that concludes my list of travel tips. However, something that is my favorite thing about YouTube is the fact that we are a community here, and that people can actually share their travel tips in the comments, and collaboratively we can actually build one of the best lists of travel tips on this platform. So feel free, if you are someone who's traveled a lot, or even maybe a person who hasn't traveled that much but still figured out a very valuable lesson learned, please make sure to drop it in the comments down below, because I would love to learn from you guys as well. If you like videos like this, anything about healthy and happy lifestyle, please make sure to follow my channel, because I plan on releasing a bunch more videos in the future, and there are already a bunch more videos on there that you can check out. And if you like what you see, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button and notification bell, and on your way out from this video, don't forget to toss it a cheeky like, because it does really help the video get to more people. And with all of that being said, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye everyone!